Go Mental is a track that was put together, the backing track was put together by the Atlantic Horns. Now, the Atlantic Horns are the brass boys on my tour. Ben, Mark, and Mike, who are incredible vibe. Who are an incredible vibe on and off stage. And they become a fixture in the Robbie Williams band. They put this backing track together. I can't remember where we were off to, but I know it was like 2+ years ago. And Ben said, come and have a listen to this. And I put an earbud in on the plane. I was like, that's great. Want to sing over it? So I did. I don't think the song made the big album because the lyrics about nothing, really. It's about everything and nothing, which a lot of songs are, but I didn't connect to it fully. I know that it sounds commercial and it sounds big, but I didn't connect to it fully. It's in the studio, and I troll through YouTube a lot. I like grime a lot. And I stumble across a guy called Big Nasty, and he does this YouTube thing called Uncle Pain, where people send him their problems, and he gives sage advice to how to combat their problems. Also, he's a grime artist, and a really good one, and a huge character. And I wanted to A, meet him, and B, have him do something with me. So I phoned him up that day, got his telephone number off the internet. And he came down to the studio and graced my track with his lyrics, and off he went. It was my idea to get Shirley Bassey to sing the chorus. And when Big Nasty came to the studio, I said, I want to get Shirley Bassey to sing the chorus. And off he went home. And then the next thing, Big Nasty did an interview with The Sun. Not about me, but I was included in it. And he said, yeah, I'm doing this track with Robbie Williams and Shirley Bassey. And I was like, I haven't asked Shirley Bassey yet. Shirley Bassey's lawyers got hold of us and said, Shirley Bassey, Dame Shirley is not very happy. It's like, oh, all right then. I'll just keep the original vocalist, that's Andrea, instead. So, sorry I upset you, Dame Shirley. Run It Wild is a track that existed before me. I added a chorus and clipped a few words, changed a few words here and there, but the song was always solid, and it was written by Tim and Flynn, my Australian brothers, nephews. I've always loved it, and this should have been on a main album. I'm a big fan of it. It's kind of a message to me, but it's kind of also a message to Ted, an erroneous message to Ted. Your mother's downtown and there's no one at the station. Steal your daddy's money and pick a destination. It's like Johnny Cochran. It's like a Johnny Cochran song. Eddie Cochran. Johnny Cochran's the lawyer from the... you never heard Johnny Cochran songs, though, have you? If the gloves don't quit... If the gloves don't fit, you must have quit. Have you not heard that song? It's amazing. Anyway, so it's Eddie Cochran-esque. And yeah, it's a message to Teddy, but it's also a message to me. You know, when we were young and wild and tomorrow didn't exist. But there's a refrain in the chorus that gives it a touch of pathos and sadness. I'm losing hope in my heart that the end is better. That the end is better than the start. You're only a child for a while, and you've got style. Go out and run it wild. It's Eddie Cochran, Billy Idol. It's just a great tune, written by Flynn and Tim, with me diddling about with the chorus and changing a few words here and there. So through Ollie Murs, I was kind of introduced to Steve Robson, that Ollie's done a lot of tracks with, and I'd heard his name a lot. And I decided, because I don't write with that many people. There's probably 4 or 5 people that I've solidly written with over 12 albums. So for me to branch out and go and meet a stranger took me to be a bit brave, and off I went. And I needn't have been that brave because it was lovely, made me feel very comfortable. And Ed Druitt also turned up for the writing session this day. Now Ed should be a solo star in his own right, good looking lad, great singer, writes a great melody. And we sat down and we wrote Numb together. And Numb is from a time in my life, maybe 16, 17 months ago. I just didn't feel great. The walls had closed in. I felt isolated. I also felt incapable of penetrating those walls, because my head's a powerful place and it can talk to me in untruths. Maybe chemical imbalance, maybe whatever it was that I was going through at that moment, but I go through those moments. They're not, it's not the first time, it probably won't be the last, but those moments can last months and months where I just don't feel safe. I just don't feel capable of interacting with the world. And similar sort of space in my head was when I wrote Feel. Exactly the same sort of, that's how I felt when I wrote Feel. Well, that's how I wrote when I wrote Numb. It was literally, I wasn't, there was no drugs or anything. So there wasn't anything to numb that pain, but I felt numb. I didn't know how to react to people. I didn't know how to leave the house, and I felt very scared at the prospect of just being in the world. And that's obviously not what I planned for myself, because I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be nobbled like that. I don't want to nobble myself, and I don't want to be scared, and I don't want to be fearful, but I quite often am. And listen, it's a shit time, but quite often it spurns a good song. I think Numb's a really good song. For me, it reminds me a little bit of Pulp. That middle 90s guitar, strings, the sadness and euphoria that Jarvis and his friends could create. I'm not the same sort of lyricist that Jarvis is, but there's something in there that reminds me of Pulp. Andy Warhol is a song that was written with Carl Brazil, my drummer, and Ben, his mate. And it was spurred by a meal I had. I'm name dropping, so forgive me. But I had a meal with Tom Ford, and Tom was talking about Studio 54. And I just got lost in the story. There wasn't much of a story, he was just talking bits and bobs, but I kind of got intoxicated with the fact of thinking about a young Tom Ford that was yet to become the Tom Ford that we know now, hanging about with Andy Warhol or David Bowie. And the story stuck with me, and then the next day I was in the studio writing, and it's a composite piece, sort of. The verses are what was happening for me at the same time that Tom Ford was in New York going to Studio 54. And what was happening for me was I was in Stoke-on-Trent. At primary school, being fearful of my surroundings and the people that I'm with, which is a theme that runs through my life. But at that moment, late 70s, early 80s, I was in Stoke in Tunstall going to Mill Hill Primary School, and Tom Ford was in Studio 54 with Andy Warhol. I was going to have my own Studio 54 moment, not literally in Studio 54, but I would grow up to be in places like that. But at that moment, the sliding door moment, you know, I wasn't there yet. And that's what the song's about. My Fuck You to You literally is a song written by Phil Eisler. Brilliantly written by Phil Eisler. I've clipped a few words and that's about it. The song exists. It existed without me. I just loved the lyric. I love the sentiment. Yeah, he's an incredible songwriter, and this is one of them. I'm covering a Phil Eisler song. Phil Eisler used to be my bass player when I started out, and you know, he's a performer in his own right. Hugely talented guy and gifted performer too. Great foil for me in the early days. Phil's gone off to write film scores in Los Angeles. Is doing really well at it. My Fuck You to You resonates with me because, you know, it's not wholly who I am, but I have a lot of anger and I have a lot of resentment. I get caught up in that resentment. And whether it's justified or not, it exists. And people say, you know, if you're going to seek revenge, then dig two graves, one for you and one for the person that you seek revenge on. So it is with this song. My Fuck You to You, for me, is one person. Please leave comments to guess who that is. I'm a big fan of comedy. I'm a big fan of comedians everywhere. I spend a lot of time on the internet, not only looking at grime, but looking at a lot of comedians' work. And I'm in Los Angeles, so I'm aware of a lot of American comedians. One of those comedians is called Patton Oswalt, who I like very much. And his one of his specials was called My Weakness is Strong, I think. Paraphrasing, but it's something like that. It's quite a while ago now. Maybe 5 years ago? Yeah, maybe 5 years ago. Anyway, I thought I'll have that. It's a really good lyric. Thank you, Patton. I've used it as a lyric. It's the lyric to a song called Weakness. And yet again, it's sort of a Dick Van Dyke version of my relationship with my wife. My weakness gets stronger every day, and it's my weakness and my love for my wife gets stronger, and I'm full speed into letting my weakness overwhelm me because it feels like a beautiful thing. It was written with Gary Barlow before Take the Crown, and we were going to do an album together. It was originally an album together, then it was an album for me. Anyway, it didn't come to pass for a few reasons. It may do in the future. I'd like that. But this is one of the great songs that we wrote together. It's called Weakness. Booty Call is a swing song that I wrote with the Stoke lads. Shout out to Danny, Calv, and Rich, Scott. Yeah, shout out to all the lads. There is some absolute tunes emanating from Burslem, Stoke-on-Trent that are glorious and sound as though they're right from the 50s or the 60s. And this is two of those tracks, Booty Call and On the Fence. There are more songs in my armoury that will be released at a later date for another project. I'm sure you can guess what that is. But I'm so proud because they share the same love for the same sort of music that I do. And we seem to reproduce it really well. Um, these are two songs that are swing songs from Burslem, Stoke-on-Trent. I won't go into what it's about because it's just swing songs. There's no me in it, you know. There's just, well, there is, because I wouldn't mind a booty call, but I can't do that anymore. But they're two swing songs, and they're in the style of the people that we greatly admired when we were growing up. International Entertainment is a backing track that was put together by Piers Barron, who I mentioned before. And I think that I was looking for a song to open up the live show for the Heavy Entertainment show. And I was hoping it was going to be this one. Then me and Guy wrote the Heavy Entertainment show, part 2. And that became the opening of the show instead. It's a big bombastic song. Silence in the courtyard. And you'll probably notice, the more observant viewers, listeners out there, that those are the same words that I open up the song Marry Me on the deluxe version of Heavy Entertainment show. Yep, I sort of, you know those pictures that you get with the puzzles where you move things around until it goes into shape. I often move lyrics around until they fit into shape, and this was the start of that lyric fitting into shape. It's the International Entertainment. Thank you for listening to me going through the track by track on my new album Under the Radar Volume 2. It's got a special place in my heart. I hope it finds a special place in your heart too, because Under the Radar Volume 1 was just received by you lot ridiculously. It warmed my heart, and there's plenty more to come. So stay tuned.